Welcome, everyone. My name is Michael Montana. I'm Senior Director of Admissions here at Wilson. And I want to thank you for joining us today for the next in our highlight session of Get to Know Wilson. And today, I'm happy that this is one that we're covering because if you have joined us for any of our other sessions, you've heard a lot about, the support of this campus and the mentorship and getting to know the people that you're going to be working with, both in a classroom and outside of it. And of course, we're tying this all together today by talking about the Academic Success Center and the support services that we offer. It's important for us to, have you know that this is something that you're getting into a big change in your life, and you're not alone in this. The admission staff is here as you kind of go through that journey to find out, hey, where do I want to be? But even when you get to the campus, you're going to have a lot of support and people to turn to to make sure that you get where you need to be and we get to propel you to that next step in your life the way that you want to be. So I'm thrilled to have three members of our Academic Success Center here today. And I will, of course, hand this off to them to let them present. But I have to say, especially looking out my window and looking at this, the umbrella motif, depending on where you are right now, is pretty apt. Hearing a lot of thunder out there. So if we lose power at any point during this, I apologize. But that said, thank you guys for all being here, and I will hand this off to the staff and, of course, Sarah to get us started.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the warm introduction, Michael. We are very happy to be here today. My name is Sarah Feldberg, and I'm the director of the Academic Success Center, and I would like to let my awesome colleagues introduce themselves as well.
Hi, I'm Kathy Wilt. I am the Accessibility Coordinator for Wilson College. I'm also the Assistant Director of the Academic Success Center. And I have been with Wilson just a little over a year now.
I'm Mike Bloomford. I'm the Academic Success Coach. And I've been with Wilson just a little bit longer than Kathy has, actually. So we're fairly new, but that doesn't mean we're green. We know what we're doing, and I don't know, just sort of a fun fact to throw out there. If any of you play Pokemon Go on campus, let me know, and we will raid some Pokemon gems together.
And Mike's presentations are usually fun. They often involve games. So jumping right in, I always like to start our orientations just by talking about where we are located physically. So we have a small suite on the second floor of the beautiful John Stewart Memorial Library. Students sometimes get a little bit lost looking for us, but if you ride the elevator up and take a left, we are right behind an intimidating fire door. I promise if you come in, we are very nice. We might have to ask you to knock or schedule appointments this fall, depending on how the sort of national situation plays out. But again, still very, very friendly people behind that intimidating fire door. I'd also welcome and refer you to visit our website, which is www.wilson.edu/academic-support-center. And you can find some information about the services we provide there as well. So within our small office, we actually provide a lot of different services. We provide subject tutoring for a large variety of courses across the disciplines. We provide a group tutoring service called Supplemental Instruction. We provide a service called Reading Skills Instruction, and Mike is going to talk a little bit more about that. Kathy coordinates accessibility accommodations. And then we also provide academic success coaching with Mike. And a really, really cool thing about our services is that a lot of them are led by talented students. So those students are great resources for you. They've experienced a lot of both the struggles and the triumphs that you will experience, and they can give you some really valuable mentorship so that you can be successful here at Wilson. I'm going to provide a slightly more in-depth overview of the basic services that we provide. So with subject tutoring, again, we've got trained faculty recommended tutors. They've earned a grade of B or higher in the courses they support. And they provide both appointment and a little bit of walk-in support for really, again, a large variety of courses that you'll encounter here at Wilson. So we have math tutors, chemistry tutors, bio tutors, tutors for VMT courses, tutors for foreign languages like Spanish and Latin. We've got tutors for the social sciences, so classes like sociology and psychology 110 and 115. So again, that wide range of courses that you're likely to encounter, there's a really good chance that we have a tutor for that class. If you are struggling in a particular class, I also welcome you to reach out to me. I'll probably encourage you to talk to Mike about some general study skills, but I also might be able to find a little bit of course-specific support. So one of our tutors might be able to kind of moonlight and step in and help you with a course that you are seeking help for. Something I like to emphasize is that tutors, again, can provide a little bit of guidance about a huge array of topics that relate to college life. So again, they're focused primarily on academic supports, but sometimes they have just that other little nugget of information or a little bit of tip or a trick on how to approach your faculty for the best results. And just a lot of, again, other really good experiential advice that they can provide you. I also like to talk about how tutoring is linked to better academic success and results. So we crunch the numbers every year, and we've found for the past 3 or 4 years that students who utilize tutoring are much more likely to be retained. That means they're much more likely to continue on with their studies and continue on in college. We also like to stress that tutoring never has to be your dirty little secret. So the last academic year, about 50% of Wilson students utilized the ASC. We completed over 1,800 appointments. And that was our busiest year for appointments, but normally we work with an even broader percentage of Wilson students. The previous year we worked with 67% of Wilson students. So again, huge numbers of Wilson students utilize our services. There's absolutely no need to feel ashamed about seeking that help. The next service I wanted to cover is something called Supplemental Instruction, which is a group tutoring service. You will have a trained SI leader who will facilitate group support for really tough courses at Wilson. So courses that we know are a little bit sticky for a lot of our students. So VMT 115 is one of those courses. If there's any VMT majors out there, I'd encourage you to keep your eyes sort of peeled for SI. Chemistry 101 is another. We've had really great attendance for chemistry. We occasionally run these for math courses as well. So within these sessions, your SI leader will structure your time. So you're doing a lot of like fun, active methods of review of important and difficult course material. And it's a really fun way to kind of make studying a little bit social. So I'd encourage you guys to check that out when you get to campus. And last but not least, or the last service that I'll talk about before passing the microphone off to Mike, is the writing lab. So in addition to our subject-specific services, we provide support for students who are working on papers at any stage of the writing process and across any discipline. So Wilson has a liberal arts curriculum, and we also provide a lot of writing-intensive courses across many majors. So chances are that before you finish your career here, you will write tons and tons of papers. So we have trained undergraduate and also graduate tutors who can help guide you through that process. Their goal is always to help you develop your skills. So your session will be interactive. They can't just kind of edit your paper or write it for you, but they are a great, great resource. And at the very end of our presentation, we have a couple little snippets of feedback from students who've used our services just to kind of share how helpful those can be.
All right. And I want to talk a minute about someone who just doesn't happen to be in the room today, Dr. Linda Swartz, who is our reading skills specialist. And oftentimes when I'm working with students, I'll refer to Dr. Swartz. And what she does is essentially help students bridge the gap between high school level reading and comprehension to college level reading and comprehension, because there's a pretty big gap between sort of how much you're expected to read and the depth to which you are expected to understand material. And she knows how to pick apart textbooks and analyze them and help you make the most out of whatever text it is you're reading. And she also works a lot with learning styles, so she can help you adapt whatever your learning style is to a best method of studying and the best method of reading and getting through some dense texts. So before it's too late, before you wind up like the lady in the picture down there, overwhelmed by all that reading, go see Linda for some reading skills instruction. And if you come to see me, I'm probably going to refer you to her at some point anyway, because what she does is really, really helpful. And next, I'd like to talk a little bit about what I do, which is kind of abstract. So I cover a lot of different areas with students because academic success doesn't mean just one thing. So part of it is metacognition. It's about thinking about how we think and learn, so that way we can take advantage of how our brains work to be better learners overall. Another area I like to cover a lot of times is strategy. So making sure that you have plans, that your time is managed well, so that way you don't go into anything unprepared, and you are ready to go with whatever kind of things college will throw at you, including being prepped for finals and stuff like that. And then I also cover a lot of learning skills as well. And one of the main learning skills that I like to cover is note taking, because I find that really effective note taking can translate into other things like the ability to create self-tests for finals coming up and the ability to overall just do better. So those are three main areas that I talk about. And one thing that I haven't put into this presentation yet, but comes up a lot, is also academic anxiety. So there are a number of reasons why students might feel anxious in any particular class for any particular reason. And I'm here to talk you through that essentially and help you figure out how to navigate being successful while at the same time understanding that academic anxiety is happening, and it is a very real thing. So just to sort of surmise at the bottom of the slide, I like to say what I do is I encourage students to think about how they learn in order to develop effective learning strategies for lifelong learning, because I want to make sure that not only will you be successful here in college, but hopefully the things that you practice working with me as an academic coach will translate into lifelong learning skills. And with that, I'll hand it over to Kathy.
Thank you. So I will talk to you a little bit about accessibility services. Hang with me. There's a lot of information, and of course I had to pick and choose just some of the highlights. If there are any questions you have after this presentation, please feel free to reach out to me individually. If it's a disability specific question, and of course you can participate in the chat with general questions. So all colleges under the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, and the 504 Rehabilitation Act must provide reasonable accommodations to students who qualify. What does reasonable mean? Well, it means that it's likely to be effective, whatever accommodation that would be, and it means that it cannot interfere with the objective of the course, and it also cannot cause an undue financial burden on the colleges. So with accessibility services, if you are a student who is considering coming to Wilson and you currently have accommodations in high school through an IEP or a 504, you would want to connect with me before you get to campus, and you can connect with me at any time, even after you arrive and start your classes. But students are ultimately responsible for initiating a request for accommodations. Unfortunately, this cannot be a parent request due to laws under FERPA that protect the students' educational records and their rights. Unless you would sign a waiver with me, I am unable to respond to parent requests. So with accessibility services, once you contact me and request the accommodations, know that all of your diagnosis information remains confidential. It is under lock and key, and we actually are using a very secure electronic platform for our accommodations process. Know that the accommodations themselves are sent to professors. So an example, if you have extra time on tests as your accommodation, that is sent to professors with the student name on it. It is also sent to the student in letter form and through email, but the accommodation is out there. It does not list the diagnosis of the student. Okay, students must be independent to use those accommodations after they are determined and established. That means if you have something such as testing accommodations, you may choose to take your tests in the Academic Success Center, and that would require you to determine when your test is and notify me with enough notice that we could set up your testing in our center. Some reasons that students would seek services, it may be a learning disability, It may be something like a mental health disability that affects their ability to perform within the educational setting. And it could be a physical disability. There is an array of reasons that students come to me. And I'd like to mention there's also temporary disabilities. Of course, we don't want to see anyone, become injured or, have a prolonged illness that would require them to have a temporary accommodation. But we do have that available to students who would qualify. So accessibility accommodations, again, we'll talk more about what's needed. So students have to have that documented disability in order to be eligible for accommodations. The documentation requirements, they will look different for each diagnosis. An IEP and a 504 expire at the end of your K through 12 years. However, we do consider that as documentation you can submit if it lists your diagnosis, and also it would have some of those modifications you may have had in high school. It does look different from high school. Just be aware of that. There are a lot of accommodations in high school that will not be considered reasonable at the college level. And again, because I'm just hitting on highlights, I can talk to you more in depth if you want to contact me outside of this presentation. So based on the review of the documentation that I would do, we would meet for an intake meeting, and I meet with the student, and the student should be ready to talk about their needs, their specific disability, what barrier that disability poses within the educational system or educational environment. And then they also need to talk about like their strengths and weaknesses. It just helps me to determine what are appropriate accommodations, what are things that are going to help you to succeed within the college environment. The temporary accommodations, I'm sorry, I did address that on the last slide. And if you need further information on any of this, please contact me. There is my contact information. And it's also accessible through our wilson.edu website. You can look under the drop down of student life, look under the Academic Success Center, and once you get in there, there are ribbons over to the side that you can click on and find information specific to our services and the process. Oh, look, thank you, Sarah. Sarah's advancing the slides for me. So, and we are an animal-friendly campus. You probably already know that. We have programs like the EFT program, or equestrian, and we have the VMT program. So we do see pets from our veterinary center. We see them, being walked around campus. There is a pet policy in the Wilson Blue Book that a student would receive at orientation, and also you can look up our Blue Book on our website to get more information about specific pets. Pets are not under my office, but the ESAs, being the emotional support animals, those do fall under accessibility because they are something that requires an accommodation. They are an accommodation rather. So ESAs, emotional support animals, are different from service animals. There is a distinct difference. And again, more information on that, I would be happy to send you some more literature on that if you did want to contact me. There is a policy that I have out on the website. I am currently updating things within our website. So if you cannot find the policy, please check back in just a few weeks. We are right in the middle of reconstruction of that. I did want to say with the emotional support animals, again, those are an accommodation, and those usually require they're required usually due to a mental health diagnosis. So they do require ongoing mental health care and mental health documentation that would come in as supporting documentation to any request for such. Okay, and Sarah, do you want this one?
Sure.
Okay.
So this is just about accessing our website, and Kathy, you spoke kind of eloquently to this already. But if you go to www.wilson.edu, this is a slightly more indirect way to get there. If you go to the drop-down menu and select either student life or academics, and we're kind of an interesting office because we exist at the intersection of those two areas, academics and sort of student life. You select Academic Support Center. If you click on the bold type wording related to your need, or use the drop-down menu on the right. So there you'll find, just as Kathy mentioned, information on accessibility services and information on some of our other academic support services. Something that I haven't mentioned too explicitly is that most of our support services are appointment-based. So to meet with Mike, to meet with most of our tutors, what you'll want to do is schedule an appointment. We have a really simple, intuitive schedule management software called WC Online. And something I didn't mention too explicitly either is that our support services, we provide them both in person and online. So we delivered some online tutoring even before the COVID-19 pandemic, but we really expanded that, and that was our primary mode of delivery over the spring. And in the fall, we'll have a mixture of online and in-person support services for students to really accommodate commuter students, adult degree program students, residential students, to make our services as accessible as we possibly can. And I'm really glad that you were able to hear from all three of us. Kathy and Mike are awesome. They are really knowledgeable, really kind, great resources for you. I did want to share just a little bit of student feedback about some of our ASC services. So, and this doesn't include accessibility services, but Kathy, maybe you can speak to that. And a lot of students, Kathy provides really profound and meaningful help to them. And I see her go above and beyond for the student she works for almost every day. But I did want to, these are just a couple of quotes about, and I should say every day, at least 5 days a week, right? So we have one student testimonial from a student who used our online writing lab. She found that it was a really beneficial experience. She got in-depth feedback and support. Her paper was returned to her in a timely fashion. And she was so happy. She said that she would be sure to tell a friend. We also have a testimonial about our Chemistry 102 SI leader. And somewhere in this presentation, I actually have a picture of Chem SI. So on the right-hand side of this presentation here, we had a student leader for SI, and she was just delightful, as was Rhiannon, our SI leader on the left-hand side. And Rhiannon is supporting VMT 216, which is a course that you'll probably take as a sophomore. It's VMT A and P. And then Trista was helping with Chemistry 102 in the picture on the right. And they were both awesome, really kind, really charismatic. They spent tons of time creating really fun interactive sessions for their students. So it's another great resource to help you be successful. And then last but not least, I have a really favorable assessment, and Mike gets positive feedback all the time. Students really rave about working with him. He's humorous, he's kind, he's compassionate. But this student is talking about how she worked with Mike on something called a math success plan, which starts with a couple of assessments to see how you learn math. And then Mike will kind of really get down in the weeds and give you some specific strategies for how to be successful in a college math course. And a lot of the time, those are skills that students don't come in with. I certainly did not have them as an undergraduate student. I wish that I did. So that's one very specific, strategic, and targeted area of support that he can provide. So if math is not your area of expertise, please come in, connect with Mike early and often. He can provide a lot of valuable guidance in that area specifically. And yeah, so I think at this point, we would like to thank all of our attendees and hand it off for some questions.
All right, thank you very much. And thank you to everyone who has submitted questions up to this point. I will remind you that, of course, we will answer as many as we have today. So if anything comes up, please keep sending them through the chat and we will get to them as we go. So the first thing, and I have to admit, you took down that. And before I get to the student question, I have to ask, because sometimes I see things on a screen that I need to ask about, and this one is for Mike. That appeared to be a presentation called Chunk It. I'm just kind of curious what that means.
Yeah. So chunk it is just kind of my fun way of saying, let's take something that's big and break it down into smaller, more manageable pieces. So in college, not only can test prep be chunked, studying can be chunked, reading textbooks can be chunked. Basically anything that's a big project or that has multiple pieces going into it or multiple tasks that apply to the positive outcome of that thing can be chunked. And so in that case, I was talking about how to chunk preparing for going into finals for that presentation.
All right. No, thank you. And that is good naming, because yeah, anything that inspires people to see something and then immediately want to follow up and be like, okay, I have several questions about that, always good. So I apologize, everybody. I was like, I got to get that one out of the way because I was just curious myself. So looking at everything here, let me just see where we want to start. I know a number of these questions actually were answered throughout the course of the presentation. Obviously, thank you for covering emotional support animals. That is always a question that we get and definitely came up. I believe this was potentially covered already, and I apologize if I missed it. One of the students just did want to confirm to access the services in the Success Center, there is no additional cost past the general cost of coming to Wilson?
Absolutely not. No hidden fees.
In fact, we have candy in our office, so we're paying you in candy to come to our office.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, and the next one, this is from a commuter student, and they were kind of curious, obviously. Not all of our students live on campus, not everybody's full-time, so they were just making sure, do commuter students and part-time students have the same access to services as students living on campus?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and they absolutely do. A lot of our tutors are commuters, and I actually love to hire commuters because I think they get a little bit more involved then. All of our in-person tutoring is provided in the library so that commuters and non-residential students would have access to that as a kind of open communal space. And then again, we also provide online tutoring, so through both Zoom, and we provide some email feedback on papers as well.
All right, fantastic. And let me take a look here. Okay, we already got that one. So, this one is about the writing lab. And this, I'm trying to figure out a way to phrase this so it kind of makes sense. Basically, with the writing lab and you're working on a paper, how done does the paper need to be to access these services? Like, if you have absolutely no idea what you want to write about yet, should you come talk to somebody, or do you need something for somebody to look at before you come in?
That is another really awesome question. So everybody's really informed and really on the money today. But a student could come in at absolutely any stage of the writing process, from brainstorming through to polishing and editing a final draft. And this is my strongest area of background. This was how I got my start in the field. I've worked as a writing tutor for a long time, and the tutors themselves tell me they sometimes enjoy those really early brainstorming appointments the most. They can be kind of like a fun jam session when you can work with a tutor to really refine your ideas and organize them. And then again, we can help you if you hit a snarl in the drafting process, you're kind of not sure where to take your draft. We can help you if you need to add some sources or kind of go back to the drawing board a little bit. And we can help you if you're already feeling really confident and you just kind of want that sort of second perspective before you submit a polished final draft to your instructor for a grade.
Okay. Awesome. Also, I apologize if I sound distracted, everybody. I apparently the sky is falling outside right now, so I just keep hearing that, and I'm going, "Oh boy, this looks pleasant." Again, I hope wherever the weather is better than it is here. So, okay, next question, and this is, and I'm gonna turn this one a little bit because I know, Kathy, you obviously talked about, some of the things that, of course, you work with students on. But one of the questions is, we talked about, obviously, anything that they work with you, Kathy, on is absolutely kept confidential and private. Other services that your department offers, the question is, do staff, do faculty, do people know if they have accessed those services or not?
That's a really good question as well. So we do our absolute best to maintain confidentiality of students who utilize our services. Their appointment records are protected under FERPA. So when students book appointments, they can't see like if other students have booked appointments. We share appointment records with other faculty and staff only in a very few distinctive circumstances. So every now and then we will work with students who really need to get their grades up, and they might work with us to sort of create a contract about how they're going to do that. And in that instance, we would share if they were sort of following through with their contract. But otherwise, no, we don't share information about who's using tutoring services. Our tutoring area is slightly open, so there's some visibility. Students might be able to see you working with a tutor. So I do like to be candid about that. But again, the records themselves stay confidential, and we actually don't share them with faculty. So sometimes, a faculty member might reach out and want to know if a student is using tutoring, but we keep that discreet because we don't want it to influence anyone's grading in any way.
Yeah, and I even take that sometimes further, just in individual appointments. Anything the student wants to talk to me about is going to stay between me and the student, because oftentimes students will come to me when things are going bad. You need academic coaching to be more successful in an area that maybe isn't going so well. And so I'm not going to share any of that with anybody.
That's great, thank you. And let me see here. Okay, this one, and I understand, looking at this question here. So obviously we've talked about that these are by appointment. And one of the questions that we of course did get that, having gone through the college process, we know that there are definitely high volume times. Does a student ever need to be worried about needing help and not being able to get an appointment? Or how far in advance would you recommend, say, when finals week coming up, people coming to access the services?
So we do encourage students to plan ahead and be proactive as much as possible. Students will be able to book appointments about 2 weeks in the future. As you mentioned, Michael, we do have high utilization time, so finals week tends to be a time when we get a little bit more saturated. We also have a couple of constraints on our appointment-based tutoring, so we offer limited walk-in tutoring a couple days a week. We'll kind of broadcast and advertise that, and that's a time when you can just sort of sashay in and work with a tutor whenever it behooves you. But for the appointment-based, you would have to schedule your appointment 24 hours in advance so that the tutors know that you're arriving and kind of can expect and prepare for your appointment. So we do have that constraint for the appointment-based tutoring. So it's 24 hours in advance. We encourage you to get a jump start. If you come early, you're much more likely to have a really positive experience. If you come when a paper is due in an hour, then we're really kind of in triage mode with you, and there's kind of limited impact that we can have with you. So coming early and often is great. We will try to accommodate you, but we do have those particular constraints. So 24 hours to book an appointment, limited walk-in availability, and we may do some of our walk-ins online only in fall, depending on sort of, again, the state and national constrictions around sort of just in-campus interaction. And then again, high utilization times, we recommend that you book in advance if possible. We do have a couple of external limits on tutoring as well. We limit students to 2 one-hour appointments per tutor per week. And that's to prevent or, kind of maintain equal access to our services. We don't want any one student to kind of hoard a particular tutor. We also don't want them to get too dependent on a tutor. So a lot of tutoring is about really promoting students' own autonomy, right? And helping them, giving support, but helping them be able to kind of take steps on their own to be effective. So that's the reason why we have that restriction.
Okay. And moving on, I realize I have to preface this one, of course, by pointing out that unfortunately the reason we, of course, are doing these sessions now is because, visiting campus is not currently an option. And that's something we're working on. We will let everybody know whenever that happens. But the one question we did get, and this one is for Kathy, obviously you've already said that you're accessible at any point, but even for a student looking at fall 22, if they're interested in visiting and sitting down, that would definitely be an option for them, correct?
Absolutely. I encourage students, if you are a potential future student and you just want, a consultation when you come to campus, when you come to visit campus. You can, when you go through admissions, you can tell them you want to meet with the accessibilities coordinator, and they will contact me, and we will get you on my calendar during your visit, during your tour. And you can also contact me outside of that, and I can do a consultation by phone, via Zoom, if you're just wondering what accommodations you have now would look like in college. I'm more than willing to speak with any student.
All right, thank you. And that's something that I know for those of you, again, who have joined us for other sessions, you know, I always want to point out that, again, this is a personal choice that you're making when you're looking for a college. And so at the end of the day, our job is to be here for you and answer your questions. You know, you're going to be the one that's sitting in classrooms, eating the food, living here. And, you know, we want to be able to answer everything that you need to know to make that decision that works for you. Because finding a place that you're comfortable at that's going to support you and get you to the next stage is really the goal here. So as Kathy said, anything that you need to know, you know, please reach out. Of course, admissions is happy to facilitate any contact, but if you know who to talk to already, you know, every single person on this campus, you know, is absolutely open to having conversations with prospective students, whether you're somebody who's looking at fall 20 and going to be here in a couple months, or somebody who's looking even maybe 2 or 3 years out. So again, it's about that resource, and that's ultimately what we are here for, to help you make the best choice possible for yourself. And I'm looking through the list of questions. I believe I'm making sure we covered everything either in the presentation or in the Q&A session. Looks like we've got one more, but I will say again, if there are any other questions, please submit them and we will absolutely get to them. But the final question is, there was a lot of talk about student tutors and working. How does a student get involved in that process? You know, when does that start for them? You know, when would somebody come to you and be like, hey, this is something I'd be interested in doing?
Sure. No, that's a great question. So we post an open application a couple different times a year. So students are always welcome to kind of submit that. They can email me to express their interest. And again, I do also reach out to faculty members. So if you have a course that you did well in, maybe you want to talk to your faculty member and approach me. But we have that open application. I hire tutors who have work study status, which is preferred but not required. I do also hire a few tutors who are paid from my institutional budget.
Okay. All right. So I believe, unless something else comes through, I believe that takes us to the end of the student questions. So obviously, before we wrap up and, you know, we say our goodbyes, I always like to, of course, ask the presenters, is there absolutely anything else that you would like to cover today that you would like to, you know, say to the group before we let everybody enjoy their evening?
Come early and often. Don't be shy.
That's right. Mike bakes cookies and shares them with students.
You never know when there are randomly going to be baked goods in the office. So come see us. And I mean, really, we're here for you. That's what we're all about, 100%. So come see us. Use our services.
And don't wait until things get really bad. So that first test grade that isn't quite where you want to see it, that first paper grade, or even before, come see us, you know, to be really, really proactive in September and October when you're kind of in that calm before the storm. Yeah, so come early, come often. Don't be ashamed. We're eager to help. Don't stew in your own juices or feel defeated. So chances are we can help you kind of set the course aright.
Yes, and I have to say, I think the amount of people that immediately just nodded their head at that one, yeah, speaking from my own experience, yes, if you feel like you need the help, go seek it out. You know, I will say my own first year of college, I probably should have sought out a little bit more help than I did. And, you know, it's something that in hindsight, I would recommend to absolutely everybody. If you ever feel like you even need help, whether it would be, you know, something small or something large, you know, seek that out. And then, you know, it always makes you feel better about where you're going too, because that kind of stuff can snowball a little bit.
Yeah, and even a caveat to that is, if you don't know what you need help with, you just need help, come see us. I've seen a lot of students who say, I really don't know where I can improve, but I want to improve. And I say, awesome, that's what I'm here for. Let's figure out how to improve.
Fantastic. And I think one final question, and I realize this one's probably for Mike. Whenever we get back to campus in the fall, can you let admissions know when the cookies show up? Sorry.
I can shoot a quick email over.
No, thank you everyone for attending. Especially thank you, Mike, Sarah, Kathy, for presenting today and taking the time. As I said at the beginning, this is about supporting the student. That is the goal of every single person on our campus. It just happens, of course, to be that this is literally in the title of the department we're talking about today. And it's something that, we really appreciate the time and the ability to let you know what we do offer. And of course, letting you know that follow-up, if there's follow-up questions after this, please do not hesitate to reach out. We're always here to actually answer your questions as you make this decision. So those of you, of course, who we will be seeing in the fall, I'm excited that we're going to actually see you pretty soon. Those of you who are looking a little bit further out, admissions definitely looks forward with working with you for the next, year or two. But again, if there's any other questions, please follow up. I thank you all for taking the time to join us today. And I hope everybody is safe and healthy out there. And again, we all hope to see you on campus soon. All right. Have a nice night.
Thanks, everyone.